Hello and welcome to Commander Budgeteer, creating inexpensive commander decks on a budget so that you can play the best format in Magic without breaking the bank, and all for the price of about a pre-con deck. If you like the show, be sure to hit that subscribe button as it really helps the channel out and it's at no cost to you. Now, let's jump straight into our commander for the day. Alela, Artful Provocateur, the 4 CMC Fairy Warlock commander coming in Esper colors. Flying, Death Touch, Lifelink, other creatures you control with flying get +1/+0, and whenever you cast an artifact or enchantment spell, create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. This creature is one of the most exciting and most built around commanders from Throne of Eldraine, even though she was a Brawl commander, because she's probably the best fairy tribal commander we have. However, I'm not leaning too heavily today into that fairy theme, but we are going to lean into her 2 abilities that are not keyword abilities, meaning giving our creatures +1/+0 and casting lots of artifacts and enchantments to create a bunch of fairies by chance. But we're not necessarily going fairy tribal necessarily. So let's go into our first strategy and bulking up those fairies that we do create and bulking up our entire team. So we have things like Ethereal Absolution, one of my favorite cards. Our creatures are going to get +1/+1, and other teams' creatures are going to get -1/-1. If we had the budget for it, Elesh Norn would be the perfect fit for this, but Ethereal Absolution is our budget Elesh Norn, and having the ability to exile any card from an opponent's graveyard and create a 1/1 spirit, not a terrible ability. We see other abilities like this giving only the rest of them only give our creatures +1/+1, no negative buffs for the enemy teams, but we see Etchings of the Chosen, which we will be naming fairies for. We're going to give all of our creatures with flying +1/+1, which you'll see later is very relevant, as almost all of our creatures that we're going to cast, even our non-tokens, have flying. And you can see we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cards that buff up our either flyers or tokens. So we are really leaning in heavy to get as many tokens as we can out, buff our team, and swing in over the top for a bunch of damage. Now, on to our next strategy, creating more of those 1/1s. We do have one card that is going to just create a bunch of card fairies on its own, and that's Stolen by the Fae. Works perfectly with Alela, can be a good tempo play, and for X blue blue, we're going to create X 1/1 blue fairy creature tokens with flying. Obviously not the greatest form of removal, can be decent against a commander to slow somebody off. Unfortunately, it is sorcery speed, but basically this is just in there to create a bunch of fairies. We also have a lot of effects that say when you do something, create a 1/1. So we have things like the Thopter Spy Network, Mirrored and Besieged, and Efficient Construction, which are going to put in a bunch of 1/1 Thopters. And we also have Thopter Foundry, which for one, we can sacrifice a non-token artifact, which we're going to be making a bunch of artifacts with our creatures, so you'll see, and we can create a 1/1 blue Thopter artifact creature token with flying, and you gain 1 life. So this is mostly going to use for things like dodging some removal and giving us a little value, and just always good to have a sack outlet out on the board. Now, speaking of artifacts, almost all of our ramp in this deck is going to be artifact based. This is the most budget portion of the deck and would be likely the first place that I would look to upgrade. But we have a bunch of 3 CMC artifacts that ramp for 1, and we have a package in Azorius, Orzhov, and Dimir, all having a Locket, a Keyrune, and a Cluestone. So the Keyrunes are interesting. They all have an ability that does some kind of creature-based thing. Cluestones can be sacked for 2 to draw a card, and Lockets can be sacked for 4 to draw 2 cards. Not a horrible rate, and could certainly come in handy. We also have one of my favorite underrated cards, Heraldic Banner. It's a 3 CMC artifact. It comes down, you name a color, and creatures you control of that color get +1/+0. Perfect in this deck. 3 for 1, not the greatest rate, but we'll take the advantage of buffing our team for +1/+0 for that. Also, Joyous Familiar is going to let us cast artifacts for 1 less, and Etherium Sculptor, I believe, does the same thing. So that is our ramp package. Not terrible. It is budget, but it's pretty decent, and in this deck, all of these artifacts we're going to drop down, don't forget, are also going to create us a 1/1 flyer. So it turns these into a little bit better than the normal 3 for 1 rate. Also, of course, in any deck, we're going to need to draw cards. So my favorite card draw card in this is Mesa Enchantress. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you're going to draw a card. We are going to cast a good amount of enchantments, probably 1 every other turn or so. And so this is going to give us an extreme amount of advantage. And Mentor of the Meek, also pretty good. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, we can pay 1 to draw a card. We also have some things that care about flying, like Winged Words is just a classic one, and Windreader Sphinx. Whenever we attack with a creature that has flying, you can draw a card. If we have even 3 or 4 fairies on the field, that's going to say attack with those and draw 3 or 4 cards. Also, I included Dance of the Manse in this. It is the sorcery out of Throne of Eldraine that lets you return a bunch of artifacts and enchantments to the board by paying X into it. And it's not specifically card draw, but it is card advantage, turning that one card into multiple cards. So I added it in this segment. Also, just like any other deck, we want a few red button options. Hit that button, panic attack, and clear the board. So here's some of my favorites in this deck. Route, always a classic for me. 5 CMC, or you can hold up 7 to have the chance to do it at instant speed in case you want to wait it out. In our deck, since we're making a decent amount of tokens, Fumigate will be nice as it will gain us some extra life. And Hour of Reckoning, very, very good in this deck. We can convoke our tokens to help us cast Hour of Reckoning. So let's say we even have 3 of them. Well, we can now cast this for 4, and here's the kicker, it's going to destroy all non-token creatures. So if we can get 10 or 11 tokens out there that are buffed up to all be 3/3s or 4/4s, that's 30 or 40 damage on the field, and then we can destroy everything else and just swing in for 30 or 40 free damage on our own. That is a truly amazing synergistic board wipe that you would not play in every deck, but in a token deck, Hour of Reckoning is fantastic, and it's under $1. So, next category, is it a bird? Is it a plane? This is talking about flying artifact creatures. So, we have 22 creatures in the deck. 14 of them are artifact creatures, and most of them, like the ones you see on the screen here, do in fact have flying. So you see a Baleful Strix. It's just a simple 2 CMC 1/1 that has flying death touch, and it replaces itself. So good. Esper Stormblade's a fun find. I had another 2 CMC card. As long as we control another multi-color permanent, which we almost always will, it's going to get +1/+1 and have flying. So that's a 3/2 flyer for 2, which is pretty decent. Again, Sanctum Gargoyle over here. When it enters the battlefield, this is also a bit of card advantage. We can return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand, which most of these creatures, as we can see, are gargoyles. Or not, excuse me, not gargoyles. Not gargoyles, they are artifacts. So, a good bunch of recursion. We have a bunch of flyers in this deck. We're hoping to look little while we can, build up this slow engine, not draw too much hate, and then all of a sudden, when we get that army, pump them up and win the game. Now, talking about winning the game, there are a few cards that are absolute bombs in this deck. Number 1, I would say, is Sigil of the Empty Throne. It is a card that is an immediate threat. For 5 CMC, it's an enchantment that says whenever you cast another enchantment, create a 4/4 white angel token creature into flying. So whenever we cast those enchantments that are going to pump our team, it's going to create a 4/4. And let's say we cast a Spear of the Heliod, that is automatically going to bump that creature up to 5/5. And if we have Alela out, we're going to get a token on the battlefield, which is 1/1, which if it's getting buffed is a 2/2. So if we have Sigil of the Empty Throne out and play a Spear of Heliod, we're essentially getting 6 power and toughness on the board, as well as an enchantment that's going to keep buffing the rest of our team. True Conviction can be a card that doubles the amount of damage we can do and give us a bunch of lifelink, turning a decent amount of fairies into a bomb attack that is really going to be nasty. And also another card that I really enjoy is Sephara Sky's Blade. She is pretty expensive at 7 CMC for a creature, but we can get helped out by tapping 4 and paying 1 white, which if we have a good amount of tokens isn't going to be a problem at all. So you can do that to cheat her out, and she has flying and lifelink, which is pretty relevant, but the biggest reason she's in here is other creatures you control with flying have indestructible. So, of course, most of our creatures in here are flying, and we're going to give them all indestructible. This will help us protect Alela. This will let us swing out with our fairy tokens without any fear of repercussion, and that is going to be really, really good for us. So, that is the deck. We'll go over and check out on TCG Player what the total cost of this bad boy is, and you can see that it comes in just under $25. This price is using the TCG Player optimized list. So to do that, just click that little optimize button. It will give you a couple options based on what kind of sellers you want to buy from, and you can get the best price for it. This deck list, that under 25, does not include any lands. You will have to work on the land base yourself, but it does include the commander for the day. Alela currently coming in at between $5 and $6 because she was pretty limited coming out of those Brawl precons. But nevertheless, you can build this deck, especially to get started, which is the way that I like to do it. Get started at $25 and then slowly build my way up to bigger cards. So I want to thank you for watching today. If you want to help out the channel, there's a few easy ways to do it. You could hit that subscribe button. You can leave me a comment or a like. And the best way to do it is share it with a friend that might also enjoy this video. So I hope you're going to have fun. Maybe you'll get a chance to try a deck like this out or a similar one. And I hope you have a really great game of Commander today. And thank you for joining me. Peace.